This is the Authentic Dating series brought to you by Ahmad and David,
where we explore what it takes to have a dating life you're excited about.
Hi, I'm David.
I'm Ahmad.
And this is the Authentic Dating series.
In this episode, we're going to discuss how to overcome key problems that men face in dating.
Yeah, I think that's what we're here for, right? We want to help people deal with the problems that they're facing in dating. And we just kind of come up with a few that, they just really kind of came to us today.
Well, I'd have to say they are common themes that we hear a lot from men, common gripes, common issues, and also challenges. And we've put them all together because we know there is a theme behind overcoming these problems. Yeah,
and we know it's possible, because we've had our own problems, like as we went through in episode 5. Maybe episode 6, I think it might be, where we talk about, the 3 steps we took to kind of transform our own dating lives.
Yeah, that definitely dealt with some of them.
Yeah. So we should just jump straight the fuck in.
Yeah, as per usual.
And actually, before we do jump in, we want to say, a big thank you to everyone that's kind of connected on Instagram. It's been great to talk to people and the comments and the messages we receive. So yeah, if you head over to Instagram, it's probably the best way to kind of talk to us directly. We're at Authentic Dating Series on Instagram.
Yeah, it's the best way, and we have a lot of fun producing content there. Actually, we also write additional articles and bits of information there, so it's actually quite interesting.
Yeah. It's a great place. We love Instagram. It's awesome.
Yeah. So cool. So the first thing that really comes up with dating, and a lot of men have an issue with, and I know, there's no getting away from it in terms of dating, is like the idea or concept of inequality in dating. And so this has a lot to do with just the roles that men and women play in dating, and they've just come to become the normal way, the standard of how things should be.
Yeah, the kind of gender, how our gender roles are formed, and they're not necessarily how we want them to be. It's just kind of, we're just leading from how they've always been, I think.
Yeah, so I think one of the most obvious ones and easiest ones to start with would be the problem that a lot of men face and sometimes have real issue with, is who's paying for the bill.
Yeah. This is a big one, because I've spoken to quite a few women about this.
And sorry, I should also add the paying for the bill on a date, not talking about paying some woman's house bill.
Yeah, if you're paying, if you're out there and you're paying for women's bills or house bills, if you're really in that Destiny Child life, bills, then, contact us directly and we will try.
That's a serious issue to begin with.
Yeah, maybe we'll coach you or send you to the
We're not talking about that right now.
We're talking about picking up like the dinner bill or the drinks bill or even the bill for the activity, you've gone to cookery class, whatever it may be. Because there's always this kind of thing where it's like, okay, it's time to pay. Should I pay as a guy?
Or rather, I should pay.
Yeah, I should pay. There's an expectation from a lot of women that you should be paying. I spoke to girls about this at length before, and yeah, it's a lot of women do really expect a man to pay for the bill.
I'd have to say for myself, as much as it's a woman expecting it, I remember back in the day where I would expect it of myself. Like, oh, I'm the man. This is, as you said, the gender roles. Oh, I should be doing this.
Yeah. So this is a kind of an inequality in the dating field.
And the next one in this sort of category would be around taking the lead as a man. So that would mean maybe as simple as coming up with the idea for the date, where you should meet the woman, the activity, whether you're going to go to a restaurant or a theater or the seaside or whatever, whatever the idea is. As a man, it's up to you to have to create this. And I know as a man, having had many dates, that it's almost a frustration. It's like, well, I say frustration, but it's like, this is a thing that I've got to do. And not only I've got to do it well. It's got to be remarkable. Yeah. It's got to I've got to razzle and dazzle.
It's just, you got to impress.
Yeah. And so with that, it's like comes as sort of a gripe that it's like, as a man, I've got to be the one to do that.
It's a have to, isn't it? It's like, I have to do this because I'm a man. And also it goes both ways, right? It's kind of, it's that you feel, and remember, just sit on that word, it's you feel that it's expected of you to take the lead. And it's not just, as you're saying with organizing dates, it's also kind of expected in society, often expects that as a man, you should be taking the lead sexually. you should be kind of instigating any kind of sexual contact, or if how often people don't imagine that a woman would say, oh, hey, do you want to come back to mine? It's like, as a man, you should be leading that, or in whatever way. It's that kind of expectation.
And on the flip side of it is, like, if you're not doing that, then you're somehow weak.
Yeah.
Or inept. You don't have the ability. Then women are not going to be interested in you if you can't take the lead sexually, and even on a date, just lacking leadership in general. Then it's like, and it's an additional sort of frustration and tension in the back of the mind.
Yeah, and all this stuff kind of takes up space in your mind where you could have that space for something else.
Yeah. So moving on, Dave, this was a hot topic for you.
Yeah, I was really passionate about this one. I didn't like this one.
Well, I didn't say I didn't like it, but it wasn't an issue that I personally felt that I dealt with a lot on dates, but I do know it's something that goes on around dates, or could be. I think the reason why we left it in there is because you said it's something that it's like subconsciously and unconsciously in the minds of men.
Yeah, and it's man bashing. It's just this.
Say that again.
Man bashing.
What's man bashing?
Man bashing is this kind of practice of, for them. I feel like it's something you get on. I saw an Instagram post by someone recently. I don't even know if we follow them or just someone we was looking at, and they were just like, ladies, you don't have to put up with a man cheating on you or treating you badly. And it was like, actually, what like, that's not what's always happening. That's man bashing to me. It's like this assumption that men are just like useless and rubbish, and they're all treating all these women really badly and blah blah blah, and it's just like just beating you with a stick constantly, and it's that kind of what you hear, the rhetoric you hear, or if you hear around men when it comes to these things, when it comes to dating especially. Yeah,
sort of a generic terms and bashings against men in general.
Yeah, it's just like a lazy regurgitation of information around men and their ability to date and be faithful and be decent.
So those were like the inequalities in dating, because we say inequalities because largely these are things that are perceived as men. The weight is on the man, the expectations on the man. He must fulfill, or he mustn't be this way. He must be Mr. Right, and he must be perfect in these ways. And it's not. And why we say inequality, because rarely do you see men going like saying the same thing about women.
Yeah. I don't think you get that much woman bashing. It's not something that. There's not even a term for it. Yeah. Woman bashing is not, it's probably not in the dictionary. Man bashing is something, I said it and you knew exactly what that meant, So yeah, and I think women aren't really expected to take a lead sexually, if from society and even my own personal experience.
So then another sort of category would be that really become key problems for men is in just the dating issues themselves, like issues that come up on dates that men face when dating in general, or trying to find someone they want to be with, or even, when they're trying to find someone they want to be with, or even if they are meeting women, trying to find the right type of woman for them, someone they like. And so the first one that I thought of, and the term I gave it, was the gap in desire. So the desire gap. So what they want and where they're currently at, and their ability to actually fulfill that. And that covers a whole range of issues, which includes men who feel like they just can't get any dates, or men who are having dates, but then feeling like they're not having finding the right type of woman.
Is that something you feel you've dealt with personally?
Well, I'd have to say when I first started, the desire gap for me was going from a space of like feeling I didn't have opportunities, I didn't have options. I was kind of like at the behest of whatever came my way.
So you just had to kind of take what you were given.
Yeah, that was my belief, right?
Yeah,
that was my reality back then. It was how I saw things. It was my circumstance, so to speak. I know you had a different one to me.
Yeah. I feel like my desire gap, as we kind of covered over in that episode, which I'm pretty sure 6 actually, when I think about it more. Episode 6, where we talk about the 3 steps to become more attractive, is the gap between the type of woman I was meeting and the type of woman I really wanted to meet. And I feel like over the years I've been able, through various ways, to kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like I feel like what David's saying here is the sense that yes, you can meet many women, or you can meet different women, but then there's also like sometimes we kind of get stuck meeting the same kind of woman, and they don't fulfill our lives in the way, or the character, and I really mean on a personality level here.
Yeah, totally.
Like, it just doesn't fulfill us in the way. Maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's the open-mindedness of it all.
There's maybe a sense of adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and every person is different, so not all of us are adventurous or travelers and this and that. But you want to find someone that you can.
Yeah. You can vibe with,
Yeah,
who has your values and who wants to dance life in the same way that you like to dance.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Forrest Gump for anyone. 2 peas in a pod.
Yeah. Good old Forrest, man. It's full of good quotes.
Jenny.
Jenny.
Me and Jenny, we were like 2 peas in a pod. Was it peas and carrots, actually?
Was it peas and carrots?
We were like peas and carrots. Yeah, so that's that. That's what we mean there. And then some other elements that come up when dating and are a big issue for men is I'm going to go to the point on like ongoing rejection, and that's a huge one for a lot of men. And I think that's one that really gets people down because it can really cause someone to feel like they can't make progress. They go out, they try to talk to someone, and they either get ignored. Or like, even if they do have a conversation, even if they get on a date, maybe they don't get second dates. Maybe, it just never gets beyond the conversational stage and never gets sexual.
Yeah.
And it's just always like, they just feel like they're just in a cycle.
It's like it's Groundhog Day for them.
Yeah.
They're just, I can feel, I definitely feel like this has been a point in my life, not necessarily now, but where, rejection occurred to me. I think sometimes this is something that a friend of mine said to me recently. He was like, you're like one of the most confident people I know. And I kind of replied and said, well, I don't see it that way. That's not how I feel, because actually rejection happens to me, in this day and time still. And rejection is something that used to happen a lot more, and it can be really painful. It can feel really
absolutely.
painful. You just feel like you're worthless, like you're a nobody, like you should just fucking give up and stop and hide under a rock or become a hermit or something.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's the thing. That's the problem. That's why it's a problem. It's because, if people didn't take it personally, then they would just be like, fine, okay. But so many men make it personal, and so many there was another point that we had around about competition, and it's like, this guy can do it, so if he can do it, like if I'm looking at Dave and I'm like, Dave's got a lot of success, and I look at him and I compare it to myself and be like, oh, actually I don't have as much success as him, then I'm somehow inept or
lesser.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it just takes me right back to high school. Like that's how it all started. That's where these conversations start. And in fact, I remember very early on when we all started getting mobile phones. It's not like kids nowadays who just have it from when they're born, basically. You got a SIM card installed.
It's schooled at birth.
Yeah.
Midwife goes, here's baby, here's SIM card.
Yeah. It's a sign for the monthly contract. So, but now, when we first started getting phones, I remember this kid. I think I can say his name because no one's going to know who he is, but his name was Tommy.
Tommy.
And
Tommy.
Tommy was like, oh, nice phone, mate, but how many girls' numbers do you have on there? And I remember looking at my phone just going, what a useless piece of equipment. I have hardly any girls' numbers.
There's no women's numbers in there.
And then it becomes a thing of like, I need to get numbers. Like that's the aim. And I'm less of a man for not having a phone filled with numbers. I mean, I was like 15 or something at the time, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, it becomes a competition. It becomes a lesser versus better versus more, so on and so forth.
You versus me. It's a comparison game.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones as well is that men are dealing with in issues is overcoming shook man.
Oh yes, good old shook man.
And some of our regular listeners know who shook man is. He is that little voice in your head that shouts very loudly and tells you what you can and can't do and how useless you are. Again, we've got a whole episode about this, episode 2, which is overcoming your fearful inner voice, which is basically what we kind of, AKA, we call shook man, and kind of overcoming that voice that's always in your head. There's always got something to say and tell you how useless you are or what you shouldn't be doing. Like even, today I was taking some photographs for AJ's girlfriend at an event that she was running, and even during the event I've got this voice saying to me, you're doing it wrong. Why are you there? You're blocking the light. That's going to look terrible. And it was just in the constant throughout the whole thing, and it's just, I was like, oh god, yeah man, this is tiring just listening to this, but you have that voice there, and it's an issue. It's a serious issue when in dating. If not, maybe I'd say probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest issue. Yeah.
I mean, that was just you today at an event taking pictures. And I know, this is a fact for all men. including myself, it's like on a date where that concern is there, and it can really redirect the whole event and where it's going, the whole sort of situation and date, because you then can start to buy into your thoughts, and it's not based on reality, it's just based on thoughts.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're right. That is a major problem that a lot of men face.
How would you say that kind of occurs or has occurred for you, like during a date?
Well, just in general, right from the beginning, even before going out, concerning myself with what I'm wearing. Is it going to be like this idea, this notion of being impressive on a date, right?
Yeah.
So if ever I allow myself to get caught up in that, then it will be a case of like, am I dressed appropriately? Am I even going to the right sort of venue? Am I going to have the right sort of conversation? Am I, personality wise, is it good enough? Is it, how do I compare? I can imagine nowadays for a lot of men, it's like, how do they compare to the other men on Tinder? And furthermore, like that actually that is actually kind of leads on to a different one that we didn't kind of write down, which is a lot of men face this idea now that women are just shopping around. They're just, so they're very disposable.
It's the commoditization, right?
Yeah. So, women are just coming on a date. They're going to, see how they are. And then they're going to go shop around and see some other men, because it's so much easier to do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So, but these are like thoughts that can come up as a shook man might bring up during a date. And man, I can remember, like, again, many, many years ago, how bad it would be for me. I would literally be frozen. I just incapable of really just being you used to call me stiff, right? So that's where the stiffness comes from. It's like really doubtful about what the right thing is to do, and even that there should be a right way.
And really buying into all those kind of that negative chatter that's happening ahead, and not just buying into it. It's just like trying to combat it as well, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being like, okay, acknowledge, but actually kind of go, oh God, I need to sit. Maybe I'm not sitting the right way, so I need to sit differently. And you keep indulging the idea, and actually instead of being there with the date.
Yeah, and then you obviously can't talk, can't make jokes, can't laugh. As easy as just being free. So so that wraps up some of the key problems that we discussed.
Yeah, I say just rub that out. I know that will sound super negative and make you feel really sad if you're dealing with some of those regularly, but now it's going to be super uplifting. I'm going to tell you how to deal with that shit.
Amazing. Tell me, how do we deal with it, Dave?
Go outside and pee up trees.
Pee up trees, yes. The first step is always trees.
No, we're joking.
Well, actually, I think you had a point to say, which is about rejection.
Yeah, I think rejection is one of the bigger things here. One of the biggest things we're dealing with is rejection, and I think it's to always remember to think to yourself, it's not about you. It's not always personal. It's not about, you've walked over to this girl in a bar and she doesn't really talk to you. She doesn't really say max to you, and you're like, oh my God, that means I'm a shit person. I'm terrible. It's not. It doesn't have to be personal. Yeah.
So this idea that your actions that you take and what the consequences of those actions are not personal to you. It's just the element of the situation.
Yeah. What's your idea on, I remember a friend of mine, she once said, she was like, if you get to know someone and then they don't want to be with you or spend time with you, and at that point, is that rejection, or would you say that that's something else?
Is that rejection? Well, I think for me personally, it's just over time. The way I would see it now today is essentially just the realities of life, which is a sense that I don't get along with everyone, and I don't expect everyone to get along with me. And in some ways, if someone feels like they're not compatible with me, or I'm not compatible with them, then the best thing is not to continue to force that situation.
Yeah.
And people being very attached, I think it's where it comes from is a lack of self-love, a lack of self-respect and self-love. And I mean that from the standpoint of when someone's like, oh man, but I really liked her and she's not that into me, or she's blah, 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 it doesn't want to spend time. And really it's a case of like, well, that's cool. Like there are being secure in the feeling that you will find someone else, that there are as the old saying is, there's plenty more fish in the sea. There's even a dating app called Plenty of Fish. And so Dave and I both know it well.
I know that plays well.
Yeah. and just really being in a sense of that, who I am is not somehow defunct or incomplete because of someone else's opinion on me, but that who I am is who I am, and that I should be with someone that enjoys that.
Yeah. It's something I can really talk from personal experience. Is like, you might get to know someone well, and then they turn around and go, they're just not feeling it like in the same way that you are. And really you have to go into is be like, actually, that's cool. It's going to be upsetting. It's going to be hurtful. But you want to spend your time and be with someone who really cares about you in the way that you care about them. Because other than that, then if you don't do that, you're with someone who doesn't care about you as much and kind of takes you for granted, then really just going to be, it just leads to just unhappiness and kind of a really dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah. So on some of the more specific issues that we said earlier, like around like paying for the bills and, well, let's just focus on that for now. Paying on the bills. I know you had some really good insight on that.
Yeah. And I think it's, this one is a funny one because it's kind of going back and forth for ages. And I'm of the school of thought of actually, sometimes I pay for the bills. Sometimes I pay for the bill. I make it sound like it's Destiny's Child all over again. Sometimes I pay for the bill. I collect the bill because that's just what I'd really like to do. But other times I just happily split it and I just look at what I'd like. It's not a feeling like I have to because I'm a man. It's like, oh, I'm a man, so I have to pay the bill. I just do it if that's what I'd really, really love to do. And it's just to know that you have a choice. There's no kind of expectation that you have to do this. There is that people talk about that, as some perceive that a man should pick up the bill, but you don't have to do that. You have choice.
Cool. Very good.
So our next point is around the man bashing. Right, my personal favorite point. You have to kind of see with this man bashing when because you hear it. I think you hear it all over the place. Is that it's just other people's perception. And that's all it is. It's not a truth. It's not a global truth. It's not even real. It's just other people's perception, and they're voicing their perceptions and their opinions, and that's it. It's not about you. It doesn't mean that's how you are. It's just external to you.
Yeah, and with that, like, because funnily enough, it's not something that really, or at least not consciously, it doesn't concern me. I can imagine it could be there subconsciously, and just worrying about. Yeah, actually, to be fair, now that I think about it, just worrying about like how I'm acting, and this actually also goes towards leading sexually as well. And,
yeah.
Especially all the changes that are going on in the world, and good changes, mind as well, in regards to respect towards women
and consent and things like that.
Yeah, So what it is to do about that is, and what I feel there is to do about that is really understanding what it is to be a good human being. And intention is always key. So this is where I think the line is drawn is with good intention. And when one has a good intention and means well, then they always will endeavor to do well.
Yeah.
As opposed to when someone is being snarky or they have issues with women or they are
trying to take advantage.
Yeah, and they have a misguided sense of entitlement or themselves or their power or because normally in these sort of situations where it's men are being abusive, let's say, there is some sort of lack of power sense, and that's just with the leading sexually stuff, right? But with man bashing, it really is a sense of like knowing that who I am and how I operate in the world is from a place of genuine heart and having good times and respect for all people. And
kind of a genuine love for women.
Yeah, and not negative. There was actually something you were talking about earlier, David, in regards to the Tantra class you went to last night, and how there was a sense of it was non-derogatory.
Yeah, of not being of removing the vulgarity away from kind of sex and sexuality, because there's nothing vulgar about it.
Yeah.
It's actually a really beautiful thing. We've all come into existence because of sex, and sex can be a beautiful expression of people's feelings and their desires and wants. But actually there's a lot of vulgarness around sex. Like some of the language is used is very vulgar, and even down to, pornography, is that actually pornography can be pretty vulgar, like when you watch it. And it's not because it's sex. It's because of the way that the sex is played out in a very quite a violent way. And that is quite vulgar, but that's because for a lot of people, sex, even in its most beautiful form, is quite vulgar to them just because it's naked human beings, right? And they struggle with that. And that's how a lot of people's perceptions of sex are. So removing that vulgarity from yourself as a man and your opinions towards women is a very, very good way to start. It's something that we used to see a little bit with students when we used to teach, is that some men just, they really hated women.
Well, we say they hated, but it's like they had a very skewed view and connection to women, so in regards to that, and so what was the next point? So the next point was around like, dealing with issues with your desire gap, like, overcoming the challenges that you face in dating. And there was also this idea of overcoming shook man. And I think this really, for me personally, where the way I used to see these things was that it really was an opportunity to for me to be able to define myself as a man, as opposed to, so this is where like a turning point where it took self-awareness and acceptance, and self-awareness was being aware of a frustration, of a problem that I was facing that I wanted to overcome. Be it like, I felt like back in the day when I started getting into learning about dating and confidence, where I didn't have options. I felt powerless in my options to going, well, how am I going to do that? And there isn't, the truth is there isn't like an ABC simple step. Even if someone gives you a blueprint, you have to go out and execute on that plan.
Take some action.
Yeah. And when you take action, there's a great quote, if I can remember it now, but it's essentially like life lays waste to all well-made plans. Because whatever the plan is, like you building a house, it'll be done in 2 months, and then 8 months later and well over budget.
Yeah.
Like,
still building that house.
Yeah, we see that on the housing shows all the time. Yeah. And that's just life. That's not like someone being inept. That is just life, and things always take longer and require more effort than we wish we had to put into stuff. But essentially what I'm saying here is like, hardships maketh the man. And this is what gets overlooked of all of these problems. And so what Dave and I really discovered here was, when we were looking at these problems, we discovered that actually there was two perspectives, and a lot of it comes down to changing where you're standing with these problems.
When you say standing, what do you mean when you say
I just
standing?
mean perspective. Like it is a bit, I'm speaking metaphorically. It was, I think Archimedes said, give me a leverage and a place to stand and I can move the world. And it's a sense that where you're standing and your perspective on something is the thing that makes a difference. So when I say hardships maketh the man, it's like, for some people, they're like, oh no, like I have this problem, I'm being rejected, I can never overcome. That's me. And that's more of a victim mentality. Or
they've got that kind of idea like, oh no, dating is really hard, meeting women is really difficult, I have to overcome so many barriers. And then, from what you're saying, that actually becomes their perception, and that becomes their reality as well.
Yeah. And it happens all the time, whether it's around finances or dating or just lifestyle in general, choices of job, opportunities, so on and so forth. People are just like, this is the way it is for me. Well, that's the perspective. And if you're always feeling like you're a victim in a situation, and by victim, I mean that you yourself have no power, then, well, that's how you're going to act.
Yeah.
Whereas the other way to see it is that you're someone who has the power to do something about it. And then all of these problems become more of a challenge for you to learn something about yourself, to progress in life, to go forth and really forge your own personality, your own manhood, your own life.
Your own kind of path through the world.
Yeah. And it's by being proactive, you're actually learning, you're actually living. This is what I'm trying to say here, is that by changing your perspective and being like, okay, this is a chance for me to grow, then you're actually living and learning, as opposed to just feeling stuck and actually being stuck, because that's just perspective.
How would you give an example for the listeners of kind of like a kind of really grounded in the world example of how to turn a problem into a challenge?
So for me, the first thing, as I was saying, the first two things is, number one is self-awareness. And I feel like that's a massive one that even for myself, I take it for granted nowadays that I have a high sense of self-awareness. And what that means is I'm able to observe myself almost as a third party person. So if I'm having certain thoughts or feelings, then I'm not just experiencing them, but I'm actually observing them and going, oh, how am I feeling? Oh, I feel sad, or I feel scared, or I feel unhappy. And obviously there'll be some sort of situation or circumstance, and I'll be able to, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. And then the second thing after self-awareness is, and really important, is acceptance. So then not resisting that fear, that experience. And so for me, resisting is essentially the idea of not willing to accept or look at the problem. So people are often like, no, that's fine. Or even worse, they try and numb themselves to the pain through drinking or other substances, rather than actually going, hang on, I'm really upset. Like they're in a relationship they don't like, or they're not in a relationship and they don't like that. And they're really upset, and then they don't deal with that or take actions towards doing it. So acceptance would be surrendering to the feeling and going, oh, actually, I feel fucking shit. Like, this is not cool.
Yeah.
And it's not cool. You know, I'm not saying it's cool to feel shit. No, it's not cool. It's like, okay, well, what can I do to make this different? And so the down to earth feelings are literally, I have to say, I go right back to me and dating. There was a moment where I just became very aware that I felt powerless, and I accepted my sense of powerlessness. And I said, damn, this is not how I expected life to be. And I was only like 20, 21 at the time. And so I was relatively young is what I'm saying. And I was like, damn, this is not how I wanted life to be. Like, this is shit. This is something that needs to change. Boom. I fucking started changing. Like, I didn't know what I was a bit of a shotgun approach, but I started moving towards a change, something different.
Just start taking like some action instead of just being inert.
Yeah.
So, just put this into kind of a scenario of, actual like dating. So this might be someone is using a lot of online dating, for instance, and they're just getting a lot of rejection. They're doing a lot of swiping and they're matching, and then no one's speaking to them. That's the problem, right? And then they would be kind of acknowledging how they feel about that, kind of feeling very frustrated and almost wanting to give up, maybe as well, feeling like you just want to give up, and acknowledging that that's not what they would like. Obviously, they have the option then of going, oh, well, it's not my fault. The girl's all stupid, or they're all shallow, and just kind of ignoring the problem. Or there's going, okay, there is a problem here. What?
Well, again, I can speak for myself, because I mean, theoreticals are pretty tough. And the reason why theoretical situations are tough is because every person has a unique problem.
Yeah.
So if I, like me, literally in that situation, it's like, well, okay, what can I do? And the first thing that I would often think of is, well, do I know someone who is good at overcoming this problem?
Yeah.
Is there someone that I can speak to about this?
Yeah, totally.
And nowadays there's so much. There's social media.
Yeah.
There's people that you can literally connect with directly and ask them a question.
Yeah.
There's people asking you for questions.
Yeah.
That on Instagram stories, we're asking people. So what I'm saying is, I'd find a good person to give me the information about it, and I would get that information from them. So then the next thing I'd say, once I have the information, then the only thing to do is to take action.
Yeah.
And to try it out, and to really just have a go for myself and see what works, what doesn't work. And as we just said, like, everything doesn't work as we expect it to once we implement it, once we actually put it out there. So it would be to apply it, see what works, what doesn't work, sort of tweak what I'm doing, learn more information, try it again, and just see until eventually I find something that works.
Yeah.
And generally, this is how I've gone about my experience of life, my experience of success in dating, was literally what I would have to call it failing forward.
Yes.
It's a phrase that came to me recently. It's just like you gotta be willing to mess it up. And again, it's taking it from the perspective of I'm someone who has the ability to affect change, and this is a challenge, right? Because you see, when there's a challenge, there's no fun. Where if the challenge is like, right, okay, I'm just going to go and do this thing, and I get a response, and then boom, it works. That's not a challenge.
Where's the fun in life
Yeah,
there?
that's like-
when you watch we'll use Liam Neeson as an example in Taken, only because he's really relevant right now. In the movie, he doesn't go, "Oh, I'm gonna find you bastards. You've got my daughter, my wife, my dog, whatever." And the first thing he doesn't do is just get in a car and then drive there and then get them back.
Yeah.
He goes through a whole load of other things and doing this because actually that's how we kind of want to live life. We like the conflict.
I mean,
we
that was
the
like
drama.
that was 3 movies.
Yeah.
that was 3 movies, 3 different times. I mean, you contrast that to say, for those of you who know about IKEA flat pack, it's not as much as a challenge putting together following. I mean, for some people it is, but you know what I mean. It's not as satisfying.
Yeah.
Putting together some IKEA flat pack is not. It's like straightforward. For some people it's hard, but not all of us. I'm just saying it's not. All I'm saying is like challenges are challenges for a reason, but it really makes you because you are shaped by it. You learn, you grow, and it reminds me of something else that a mentor often says to me, which is you learn, you apply, that breeds success, and then you encourage you to learn and go around the cycle of learning, applying, and that's life again.
And some of the time after you've been learning and applying for a while, you won't necessarily be going to other people asking for advice. You'll be going, okay, what could I do here? You think of something, you go try it, and then it works, it fails, it succeeds, and then that will be your learning.
Well, funny enough, that's how we actually got into coaching in the first place.
Yeah.
Because we went around the circle so many times. Eventually, we went to learn some more, and then we realized we were just as good, if not better, than the people that were teaching.
Exactly.
And then we started coaching.
Yeah.
We realized we actually had things that we could teach other people.
Yeah.
And they could learn from us.
Yeah. And much like the podcast, right?
Here we are now.
Yeah. We're talking.
There you go.
So we've given you the
Key problems.
the key problems and some solutions, but what we kind of came up with our own kind of overarching ways to solve these problems for your life.
Well, I think more specifically, we want to leave you with something that you can
go and actionable actions.
Yes.
Actionable actions.
Yes, the best kind.
So for me, it's being aware of your perceptions and the world's perceptions, and just be really aware that that's all they are. They're just perceptions. And like I'd say, even just spend some time listening to people's perceptions. Like when they talk, people just throw them out of their mouths like they're vomiting at you constantly.
Sorry, just to interrupt, but when you say perceptions, what you mean, like people's point of view? Like,
yeah, the perceptions of how a man should be or how dating is. Just listen to these perceptions and realize that that's all they are. They're just perceptions, and that you have all the power to create and also to choose what your experience is like by just simply looking at your, what AJ was saying earlier, to look at your problems differently and look at them as challenges and not as kind of insurmountable problems.
Yeah. Was there anything else?
No, that was it for me.
Okay. And so what I had, and this was first, so I have two things to say. So firstly, it's a sense that taking stock of your life. And so like I was saying about being aware of your frustrations and accepting your frustrations for what they are. So taking stock of your life and what you actually want, number one, what you actually want, and number two, like what you're willing to do to get there. Are you actually willing to put effort into it, or are you just kidding yourself? And do you really just want to stick with your current story about how things are?
Or are you saying like, are you willing to put the effort in to get to where you want to, or are you just listening? Are you just looking for information just to buy time? And
well, sadly, there are lots of people out there who they just love complaining.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't even realize that that's what they're doing. But maybe what I've just said here now will help them to realize that that's just what they've been doing.
Yeah.
Is they've not actually tried to do anything different to what they're currently doing. They just say, this is how the world is, and that's that.
Yeah, and I can't do anything.
So when you say perspectives and perception, then they have a perception and they're not willing to review it from another point of view. They're just going to go, boom, that's what I was told. That's how I see it. That's how it is.
Yeah.
And I know that's not the case, because many people said to me, you're not that kind of guy to date different women. You're not this, you're not that. When I first ventured out, and I was like, damn. But because it wasn't for me, it wasn't about dating different women, but more having more power in my life and options for how I live, and actually just feeling like there was actually something missing in my expression. Is what got me going. So there's different perceptions, and ours is another perception.
Totally. What you hear us talk about is just our views, our points of views. It's our truth, or our truth right now in this moment as we're speaking. But
it's what worked for us.
Yeah, and like, you know, you might be listening to us and get to this point and just be like, these guys are fucking full of shit.
Yeah.
This might really trigger you and might really upset you. But I'd say, actually really view why does what we're saying upset you? Is it unbalancing your perception of the world? Are we challenging your current perception? And are we challenging it because we might be calling you into action that you may not want to take?
It's very confronting. So then with that in mind, actually, it's this is something that there was a question that I was asked when I first started on my journey. And it's a question that I think, you know, if you haven't got a piece of paper and pen with you right now, it's good to get, this is a good moment to grab one. And what I want you to write down is an answer to this question. And it's, if you were 70 years old and you're looking back at your life now at the age of 70, and I'm assuming you're not currently 70, as I so everyone who's not currently 70.
And if you're 70, imagine you at 90.
Yeah. But hey, you know what? If you're 70, you can really resonate with what I'm about to say. And so if you're 70 years old and you're looking back at your life, I just want you to write down, what would you regret if you didn't take action on changing something about your life right now? And obviously we're talking about dating here, but you could apply this to anything. So just to repeat that, I want you to have a think about and reflect on, if you were 70 years old looking back at your life, what would you regret not taking action on to make a difference to your own life? Cool. Yeah. So there you go. That's the action for this week's podcast. That was a very heavy podcast to begin with, very heavy topic, but a very important one, because so many people have these frustrations, and there's so much information online about dating and doing the right thing and how to get this sort of girl or whatever. But then people aren't necessarily dealing with the truths of what it takes to take action, to make a change, and how much ups and downs one can really face. And so really it's really important to know about this before or even during learning, because I know I faced many a tricky night and with no outcome, going to clubs and not having the courage to speak to anyone night after night and feeling like I'm going nowhere. But, you know, it was through the perception of the challenges and challenging myself and sticking with it and patience that, you know, I really made progress in my own life.
Yeah. I can resonate with that. Cool. So that's the end of the episode. Thank you for listening. We love you listeners. We love that you listen and you enjoy to our thoughts and feelings about dating and our lives. As always, you know, get in contact with us, as we said before, on Instagram. But yeah, just be out there, go out there and take some action in your life and make shit happen. Make a change.
And for anyone who listens all the way to the end, just to let you know that soon we're planning to do having some guests on the podcast.
Yeah.
And invite people we know, invite some people we don't know. But we're all with the idea of really giving you guys an all-round experience of what it is to be great at dating and have an exciting dating life.
Yeah.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Ciao.
Ciao.